Welcome to Scene Saga. Today we dive deep into the world of Passengers, a breathtaking 2016 sci-fi romance drama filled with love, loss, and ethical dilemmas in the lonely vastness of space. Spoilers ahead, so proceed cautiously. Our story begins aboard the Avalon, a cutting-edge interstellar spaceship on a 120-year journey to a distant colony world known as Homestead 2. This world promises a new beginning for its 5,000 passengers and 258 crew members, who are all safely tucked away in hibernation pods. Designed for luxury and efficiency, the Avalon operates entirely on autopilot, maintaining its course while its inhabitants slumber peacefully. The voyage is smooth until the ship encounters an unexpected obstacle, a dense asteroid belt. The Avalon's shields activate, deflecting the smaller asteroids, but the strain begins to weaken them. Power is diverted to the main shield as the ship's autopilot adjusts to avoid a catastrophic collision. Despite the ship's best efforts, a massive asteroid slips through, striking the vessel and causing severe damage. Internal systems scramble to repair themselves, but the impact triggers a cascade of malfunctions. Among them, a single hibernation pod mysteriously activates, prematurely waking its occupant. The man inside is Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer. Disoriented and groggy, Jim steps out of his pod, greeted by an automated system. It congratulates him on successfully completing 120 years in suspended animation and informs him that Homestead 2 is just 4 months away. Encouraged to enjoy the Avalon's many luxuries, during this final leg of the journey, Jim begins his orientation. At first, Jim is excited about this new chapter of his life. He explores his cabin and uses his ID band to access various amenities. However, when he attends an automated orientation class, he quickly realizes something is amiss. He's the only person there. The holographic instructor cheerfully avoids his questions, telling him to save inquiries for the end of the lesson. Frustrated, Jim leaves to search for other passengers. As he roams the ship, the eerie silence becomes more unsettling. Jim visits the main concourse, the dining areas, and the entertainment zones, each meticulously maintained but devoid of life. When he consults an informational kiosk, it directs him to seek out the ship's crew. Jim's hope grows as he heads to the bridge, but upon arriving, he finds the area sealed off. Through a glass partition, he sees the crew still in hibernation, unresponsive to his attempts to communicate. It is only when Jim checks the ship's navigational systems that he discovers the horrifying truth. The Avalon is not 4 months from Homestead 2. It is still 90 years away. His premature awakening means he will live out the rest of his life on the ship, alone, never reaching his destination. In a desperate bid for help, Jim sends a message to Earth. However, the automated communications system informs him that due to the vast distance, his message will take 19 years to arrive and another 36 years for a reply. Overwhelmed by despair, Jim begins to realize the gravity of his situation. The days turn into weeks, and Jim struggles to adapt to his isolation. At first, he occupies his time with various activities, exploring the ship, experimenting with its features, and indulging in its luxuries. However, even the most lavish experiences begin to feel hollow without companionship. One day, Jim stumbles upon the ship's bar where he meets Arthur, an android bartender. Arthur, programmed to provide friendly conversation, becomes Jim's sole source of interaction. While the companionship offers temporary solace, Jim finds it impossible to escape the crushing loneliness that consumes him. As the months drag on, Jim's mental state deteriorates. His efforts to fix his hibernation pod prove fruitless, as do his attempts to access the crew's quarters. The ship's automated systems are impenetrable, and each failure chips away at his hope. One particularly bleak evening, Jim suits up for a spacewalk, seeking a fleeting moment of awe in the void. Floating outside the Avalon, he is struck by the beauty and vastness of the universe, but the experience only amplifies his sense of isolation. In his darkest hour, Jim considers ending his life. He enters the airlock without a spacesuit, ready to open the outer door and drift into oblivion. But at the last moment, he hesitates and retreats, collapsing in tears. His despair is interrupted by a chance discovery: a hibernation pod containing a woman named Aurora Lane. Aurora's presence captivates Jim. Through her passenger profile, he learns she is a writer with a sharp wit and a dream of becoming the first journalist to document life on Homestead 2. Intrigued by her intelligence and charm, Jim listens to her interview recordings and reads her writings. Over time, his fascination deepens into infatuation. Jim begins to wrestle with a moral dilemma. Should he wake Aurora, condemning her to share his fate? Or leave her in hibernation, preserving her chance at a future? His conversations with Arthur provide little clarity, as the android is unable to grasp the ethical implications. Torn between his loneliness and the potential harm to Aurora, Jim agonizes over the decision for weeks. Ultimately, his need for companionship outweighs his guilt. Jim activates Aurora's pod, carefully staging the scene to make it appear as though her awakening was another malfunction. He hides as she regains consciousness, observing her initial confusion from a distance. When they finally meet, Jim offers to help her adjust, guiding her through the same disorienting process he experienced. Aurora's journey mirrors Jim's, but her reaction to their predicament is more determined. Fueled by her adventurous spirit, she explores every possible solution to return to hibernation. However, as weeks turn into months, her optimism wanes. Despite her frustration, she begins to bond with Jim, finding comfort in their shared struggle. Their relationship blossoms into a deep connection, punctuated by moments of joy and vulnerability. Together, they explore the ship, sharing meals, dancing, and even venturing outside for a breathtaking spacewalk. For a time, they find happiness in each other's company, forging a life amidst the stars. But their fragile happiness is shattered when Ofta unintentionally reveals the truth. Jim woke Aurora intentionally. Aurora is devastated by the betrayal. Feeling robbed of her future, she lashes out at Jim, accusing him of selfishness and condemning his actions. Her anger drives a wedge between them, leaving Jim consumed with guilt and Aurora struggling to reconcile her feelings. The tension between them is interrupted by a new crisis. The ship's malfunctions escalate into catastrophic failures. Systems across the Avalon begin to collapse, threatening the lives of everyone on board. Amid the chaos, another pod malfunctions, awakening Gus Mancuso, a deck chief. Gus's expertise proves invaluable as he helps Jim and Aurora diagnose the ship's problems. They discover that the asteroid strike caused critical damage to the reactor, which now threatens to overload. As they work to repair the systems, Gus's health deteriorates rapidly due to complications from his premature awakening. Before his death, he entrusts Jim and Aurora with his ID bracelet, granting them access to restricted areas of the ship. The stakes reach a breaking point as the reactor nears meltdown. Jim and Aurora race against time to replace damaged components, but their efforts are thwarted by persistent failures. Realizing that someone must manually vent the reactor from outside the ship, Jim volunteers for the dangerous mission. In a harrowing sequence, Jim ventures into space, battling against the odds to save the Avalon. Aurora, unwilling to lose him, assists from inside, urging him to return safely. Despite their best efforts, the mission nearly ends in tragedy as Jim's tether snaps, sending him drifting into space. Refusing to give up, Aurora dons a spacesuit and retrieves Jim, bringing him back to the ship. Using the medical pod, she revives him, and the two reconcile, their bond strengthened by the ordeal. In the aftermath, Jim discovers a way to use the medical pod as a makeshift hibernation chamber. He offers Aurora the chance to return to stasis, ensuring she reaches Homestead too. However, Aurora chooses to stay with him, embracing the life they've built together. Decades later, when the crew awakens, they find the ship transformed into a lush paradise, a testament to the love and resilience of Jim and Aurora. Through a heartfelt message, Aurora recounts their extraordinary story, leaving a legacy of hope and humanity amidst the stars.